in order to truly appreciate great peace, you must first go through great pain. You know what I'm saying? What does that pain look like? It's different for everybody. It doesn't mean physical pain, mental pain. It means going through things and being able to get out of them. You know what I'm saying? And appreciate them for what they were.
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks Podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. But before we dive into today's episode, we have to talk about Desert Fox Golf. What can I say about this company? They have been great. They have these really cool tumblers that hold 17 ounces of your drink of choice with a nice screw-on lid and a slide top for easy sipping. I may have 4 of these tumblers myself. They may have even made the Roughnecks tumblers for the Roughnecks volleyball tournament we held at Newark Station. But along with these tumblers, they also have something called the phone caddy. It is the best phone holder in all of golf. I have one of these. Reno does as well now. It holds your phone in a perfect spot on the golf cart. So say goodbye to throwing your phone in the cubby or in your pocket or even in your bag. You have to check out Desert Fox Golf. Head over to desertfoxgolf.com and see for yourself. And when you make your purchase, be sure to use the promo code Roughnecks for 10% off your order. But let's get into today's guest. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. This is episode 197. Hopefully we are back on track finally. It's been a lot lately, but we are back with another episode, and joining me today is a highly anticipated guest from the things that I have heard. We actually spoke briefly at the volleyball tournament originally about it, and then I believe you reached back out, and we got you on here. Denali, welcome to the Roughnecks Podcast.
And I appreciate you. I heard a lot of good things about this podcast, so I wanted to be on it.
And I heard you're somebody that's easy to talk to, so that's like the best thing you can ask for when you're a host and bringing somebody on.
That means a lot. Thank you.
So I like to kick off every episode by kind of allowing the guests to give a background on themselves, to kind of tell us who you are and kind of what you do.
Yeah, man. So my name is Denali Harris. Just turned 20 there September 1st. So that was cool. Originally from Texas, moved here to Ohio in end of 2013. Yeah, end of 2013, going into 2014. I would have been going into 6th grade. Played football my whole life, man. All of high school, all of middle school. I was that class clown who was always trying to make everybody laugh and, hope to bring them peace. When I came to school, I was that guy. Played football, made a couple great plays. I feel like in my high school career, that a lot of people recognize and try to carry that on to what I got going on now outside of high school. Biggest thing is not letting that, that high school football, when you go in the hallways and everybody, they know who you are, know what you do, not letting that bring you down when you get out of high school, because no one's talking about it no more about what you did. So now you got to go make another name for yourself. So that's the journey I'm on right now, is becoming a new version of myself and the next version of myself. As of right now, I'm a real estate investor. I buy and sell properties here. Really, it's been all over Ohio. I've been in Newark, Columbus. We did one deal over there in Mount Vernon, and then also starting to work in Cleveland as well. Got a couple of deals we're working on up there. So I do the real estate investing. Been learning that for a couple of years now, and then as well, I just got the strength and conditioning spot there at my old high school, Licking Valley High School, and helping those kids move forward along their journey as well, help them become better.
Originally from Texas. Where at in Texas, even though it's a giant state?
Yeah, so it was called Killeen, Texas, and it was a military town.
Okay.
About an hour away from Austin.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you which way it was. I'm not really geographically sound. Yeah.
My college roommate, Texan Teddy, who I actually started this podcast with, is from Texas. He's just outside San Antonio. So that's where he's from. Near, I believe, where Connor is stationed at. Yeah.
So I'm gonna reach out to him because I'm going to Texas next month.
Okay.
And I told him I'll get together with him and see some things. I want him to see how I lived over there in Texas. See the things.
Yeah. Big football state too. Is that
Oh,
kind of, you think, where the, the love for football came from probably? Or was it just something that you just fell in love with just because that's just what happened with you?
yeah, so it's actually funny. When I came here in sixth grade, I was at the camps and whatnot. A lot of the coaches, they were like, why'd you come to Ohio? Like, Texas is where the football's at.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just due to some, how you say it, unseen circumstances that I had to move here. But I would say, man, and this is something I realized recently because I coach, is football was more than, just football to me. I had a lot of things going on in my childhood, and it was an outlet, to not focus on what was going on and just to keep moving forward. So, yeah, I had a little kid I was coaching. He had said, man, it's just a game. I mean, we lost in the playoffs. And
It's not just a game.
yeah, and it sparked me, and after I had got from that game, I was thinking on the car ride home. I'm like, why'd you feel so triggered about that kid saying that? And it was because it was an outlet for me. You know what I'm saying, for me to control my emotions and to release them. So yeah, that's where football came from.
That's what, even if it's like simple or big, it's an outlet for everybody. Well, any type of physical activity really
Right.
is. And like, because I always remember, like, it didn't matter whether I was stressed out about a test, I had so much studying to do. Once I got into practice, even, I'd just be like, you forget. And then like after practice, you're like, oh shit, I still have to study for that test. But it like,
1,000%.
it just kind of like breakups, whatever it was, like you just forgot about everything, and it was a way to get everything out. And like after practice, yes, I'm dead, but I always felt better after the
Right.
fact, when like I just felt like almost like a stress was lifting
1,000%.
off my shoulders.
1,000%.
And that's, how do you handle, like as a coach, how do you handle that type of situation of a kid being like, it's just a game, especially because you said if it was after a playoff loss?
Yeah.
That's even tougher, I feel like.
I could tell you how I handled it. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it was the right way or the wrong way. Because like I said, there was emotion involved in it when I had made the speech. But pretty much after that game, I said, I said the player's name, and I said that kind of summed up, how we went into this playoff game. We thought there was another game. We thought it was just a game. When you get into a playoff game, there's a lot of emotions that go behind it. So I said that summed up how we played, guys. Like everybody just played like there was another game left. You know what I'm saying? You got another season left. There's sixth graders. That was their last game, in Biddy League. And that summed up how they played. And then I ended it off with, because it was the last game, so instead of like, oh, you guys, you did really good. I'm more focused on getting them ready for the next level. And to get ready for the next level, I had told them like, us having to motivate you guys, every player, when you do something wrong or, when you make a bad play, they don't care in middle school or high school, especially at Licking Valley. They're going to play who they think can play, and that's it. They're not going to keep going back and forth with, oh, his mental state's not there. Oh, and don't get it twisted. It's Biddy League, what I'm saying? But it matters. Yeah, it matters.
It
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Biddy League, like that's where, I mean, I went to Watkins, and like that's where like our high school coaches, they weren't at every game or everything, but like they would come to games and watch, because that's what's coming up. That's the future. And I remember like one time, it was freshman year, and I had a safety or something in like a scrimmage or something, and my coach came up, our varsity coach came up to me, and was like, "Hey, that was a really nice play." And I was like, they were at a different school, so he watched film. Like it's like and that's the thing too. Like you walk in the halls and everybody knowing who you are, you never know who's watching. That was one of the other things that it took a minute for me to learn. Like you never know who's watching. Like I was the kid in high school. Yeah, I was the athlete, but I also dabbled into like partying and some drinking and stuff. And I look back and like I used to talk about it like, I started drinking at this age, and like I used to be going to partying, and then I'm like, why am I gloating about that? Like now I'm looking back, like I could have been so much better if I'd have just took a different direction. No, I'm not saying like when you're in high school, I'm not saying you need to go out and drink, but you need to go have fun with friends and do that kind of stuff. But you never know who's watching and who's always looking at you.
1,000%. That's very true. Very true. Yeah, I was I think in high school I was more of a stickler. So I remember in my freshman year and even like middle school and whatnot, I was one of those kids. I wasn't the best, but I wasn't the worst. And this could be selfish, but that used to piss me off more. You know what I'm saying? Because now I don't know where to scale myself. And it was the same way in the classroom. I wasn't the smartest kid, but I wasn't the dumbest kid.
Yeah.
So like that feeling that I used to get used to really irk my soul. So,
I was very similar where like I wasn't the best. Like my sophomore year, I ended up getting to play varsity, but I had to work my ass off to get there.
Right. Oh,
Junior
yeah.
year, like I still had to work because there still was a little bit of a battle between me and a senior. So, and I ended up winning that out. But then like senior year was like, I was the only returning starter on defense. So
Whoa.
like other people had some playing time, but they didn't. Like I was the only guy that really played a bunch. And I'll never forget, like I kind of didn't try. Like I worked, but like I didn't work as hard. And I look back and I'm like, I feel like I could have been so much better, because you get to that point sometimes of like, you almost get cocky instead of confident. And that's one of the biggest lines that I ever had. My uncle always told me, he goes, I told your brother, and I'm going to tell you, there's a fine line between confidence and cockiness.
Oh, it's real.
Don't cross it. Once you cross it, it's very hard to go back. And
1000%.
I remember him telling me that when I was in like 6th grade. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. And like, it makes sense now. I wish it had made sense a little bit earlier, but that's just kind of how it goes. But you mentioned too, after high school, sports are done, making a name for yourself after that.
Yeah.
That's something we've talked about a lot on this podcast. How did you go about doing that? And like, kind of what was your mindset going through it? Because it's not something that's easy, because like you went from the sport being essentially your whole life, if you were like what a lot of us talk about, to where it's like, all right, now that's done. Now what do I do?
You want to hear something scary, man? I could say one thing I've always did, and it sounds super cliche, man, but I've always been a big dreamer. Like even when I was in elementary school, I was one of those kids. I'm going to go to the NFL. You know what I'm saying? Why do you want to go to the NFL? I'm going to go get my mom a house. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to get my mom and dad a car. And in high school, it was kind of that same way, like that same, the dream big. I'll be very transparent. My sophomore year, I had someone tell me that, if you don't get looked at by any D1 schools by sophomore year, you're not going to go anywhere. And I let that affect me a lot. The way and I still trained. Like I used to train a lot. You can ask any of the players I played with. Trained a lot to, to better my craft and to be a better asset to the team. However, as far as, going on college visits, looking at colleges and going to these camps, I boiled that down a little bit due to hearing that sophomore year. And senior year was my COVID year. Yeah, so my junior and senior year was that whole COVID spill that we had.
My senior year of college was COVID year. I didn't get a senior year of college football.
Yeah. And I'll tell you,
great.
Man, I played football since I was 4 years old, and I was younger, so I think I was 16, 17 senior year, all the way up until then. I thought I was going big in football. No one was telling me different. I knew I wanted to go play college football, but I didn't know what I wanted to go to school for. And then we had senior year come up, and you start seeing that not everything is promised. I start hearing in my head what my trainers used to tell me, hey, there's going to be a day, that last day you put that football down, what are you going to do after that? I used to run routes and whatnot on my free time. My hamstring got messed up during COVID year. And it really, really pushed me to think, what are you going to do? You're more than just football. How can you apply what you did with football into life? Not just a career, into life. Because I think that's real. We underestimate how much we can learn about life.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I try to apply to moving forward. But yeah, COVID, it opened me up. We had a lot of time to think. We had a lot of time to sit with ourselves. Couldn't see anybody. Only time I could do was spend time with myself. So thinking about that, I've always had, hustlers in the family. My mom's a hustler. My dad's a hustler. They used to do their thing, and they still do their thing. But I would say confidently that I adapted those personality traits. I was selling car seats, cribs. I totaled one of my first car that I had. Bought another car that was a Dodge Charger. Sold that one, made it $1,000 off of it, I believe. And I'm like, man, like this buy low, sell high method is crazy. Like I love it. And so then it was the car seats, the cribs. Gosh, what else? I sold 2 toilets off the side of the road before, $80 a pop. Yeah, my mom, I told this story on the last podcast that I was on. I brought them inside the house, and she's like, why are you bringing those toilets inside the house? That, like, other people shit in those. And it didn't really hit me until she said that when I was bringing them in. I was like, oh, that makes sense. I've sold TVs off the side of the road. I had a friend, he texted me, he was like, bro, you remember when you went to the Duke gas station and sold that scooter to an older couple? And I was like, dang, I did do that. And it was just one of those things, you buy low, sell high. So I applied that model. I seen you could do a real estate, through TikTok. I see all these dudes talking about wholesaling and real estate and how powerful it is. So I'm like, I took that same knowledge that I was doing with that. I'm like, you can buy low and sell high with the properties too. But the margins are way
it's a
different.
lot different of a margin.
Yeah, so I'm that had me geeked tremendously. So that's where that kicked off, I would say.
Did you have a mentor for it, or is this something that you just researched and went into?
Yeah, so at first I was researching myself. I was one of those guys. I wanted to have the nice cars, the nice house, be super flashy. That was my motivation. Get into real estate. You can make this money. Oh, I can go buy a nice car. I can go to $80,000. I'm looking up what cars I could buy if I did this. We're at football practice one day my senior year, and I hear these kids behind me talking about real estate and whatnot. I'm like, what you guys know about real estate? Like, how do you? I'm wanting to get into that. Like, okay, so I'm tuned into the conversation. This guy, he's like, oh man, I have this guy. All he does is study real estate. He owns properties. This, that, and the third. I'm like, really? I said, I want you to introduce me to this guy. So we get into conversations. And how you say? Long story short, that ended up being my first mentor in the game of real estate, and he really was a guy who set the tone. His name is Miles Poff. I'd love to get him on here too. He's awesome. But he had really set the tone with me, man, because when I told him I wanted all this flashy things, he was like, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? But what is your purpose in real estate? What is your why in real estate? Because if you're just in it for the money, it's going to run you out just as fast as the money comes in. And I'm like, whoa. So now I had to think about why I wanted a lot of money, you know what I'm saying, to help my mom, all the sacrifices that she's made, you know what I'm saying, to let her know that, hey, that all you did, you know what I'm saying, from 15 years old, moving to Texas, like, that was for a reason. This was that reason. So that's one of the biggest things. I got two younger siblings that I want to also guide in life and have them be better than me. You know what I'm saying? And real estate is a powerful tool to do that. I also want to give back extremely. I know I'm working with I've had a few thoughts about, opening up a car foundation and whatnot and trying to give somebody a free car every year. They have to have certain circumstances in order to do that.
Yeah.
But having that, and then I got another guy talking to me about giving Christmas gifts and whatnot away. And real estate allows me to do things like that. You know what I'm saying? As far as the money coming in and whatnot. And then I also feel like the more you give, the more you get in return. You know what I'm saying? If you're giving in a genuine manner. So that's what I try to follow. And that's why I love giving.
That's something we just kind of talked about actually last night on an episode that'll come out later, was like people that do things for the wrong reason. And it was not necessarily in that aspect. It was more of a fact of like helping somebody out and then like later throwing it back in their face, like if they can't help you out at a certain time or whatever. And it's
terrible.
It is like
terrible.
It makes me sometimes like if somebody helps me do something, and I've had it happen. We've all had it happen. I feel like, and then you're like, hey, and they're like, hey, can you help me with this? And you're like, you're busy. I'm like, no, man, I'm sorry, I'm busy. And they're like, well, you remember when I helped? And it's like, so you just did that for you. You didn't do it.
Yeah, they tried to. I don't like that. Man, a saying that I like using, and this is something I had thought about. I was like, man, you give and you expect nothing in return. And I was like, what does that mean? I said, that means you hold that door open, and when someone walks through it, you don't expect them to say thank you. You just keep going about your day. And that I try to lead that in everything that I do. Everything.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like sometimes I feel like I do get angry though. Like when people are like, you hold the door.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it. I mean, question
like,
a little bit.
But I do see what you're saying. Like, or when like we've had customers with the industry that I'm in, they'll come out and like tip us, and like we're like, why are you tipping us? Like, why are you giving us money? They're like, you guys just did such a good job. We're like, we're already getting paid. Like, you don't have to pay me more. Like, I mean, I'll take the money, thank you, but it's like the genuine, like, and that's the cool thing about being like that. People always ask, like, all the customers I install pools, and they're always like, you guys ever swam in them? We're like, nope, never swam in any of our pools. Like, now one guy fell in one day, but that was hilarious. It was the middle of winter too. It was cold as crap. We were closing it and he fell in. Like, I said something to him, turned around, heard a splash. By the time I turned back around, he was already out of the water. He's like, my head never went under the water, but he fell completely to his neck. And I was like, you can go sit in the truck. He's like, nope, we're going to finish. We're good. I'll finish. I'm like, Brent, it's 30 degrees outside. Go sit in the truck.
Yeah.
But like, I always tell people, I'm like, one of the coolest things about installing somebody else's project is like their faces when it's all done, or like when they come out and like seeing the progress, and they're always like, this just looks awesome. And it's like, that's why I continue to do it. Like, yeah, it's terrible manual labor at times.
For the right reasons, though.
Yeah.
Little things like that.
It is. I mean, and it's just, people are always like, you have a college degree, why do you have a manual labor job? Because I actually genuinely love going to work, like, and love what I do. Now, there are days that suck.
You know how powerful that is to love what you do?
Yes, because I watched my dad work at, he's still at the company. He's been there for over 30 years, and I'm pretty sure he's hated pretty much not every moment. I think he liked it at the very beginning, and then like they had leadership changes and that kind of stuff. And but he's like, I don't have a degree. I'm not like, he's an electrician, and he's like, I know how to do this. I've been at this company for this long. I'm just going to ride it out and retire. But that was one of the biggest pieces of advice he gave me when I was in like high school, and especially like in college, towards the end of college when I was getting ready to job search. And he was like, just make sure it's something that you love to do. Like, don't go do something that you hate. He's like, I've been doing it my whole life, and because
we only get one of these things.
Yeah,
only one of them.
It's like you blink, and all of a sudden, like, we just graduated, and then you blink, and you're like, what? Where did 5 years go? Like, I feel like I just graduated yesterday, high school, let alone college. So it's like, I get like, when you get like the memories that pop up of like 6 years ago, and it's like, what? That was 6 years ago?
I literally said that this morning. Someone sent me a video 5 years ago, and I was like, that was Denali 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That was just 5 years ago.
It goes fast.
Because it used to be just 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking back, I'm like, what?
Yeah. I feel like after, like, once you get into like working every day and that kind of stuff, it's like time, like, in a blink of an eye, it just flashes by.
It'll fly, for sure.
But how important is that mentor in what you do? And kind of, I'm just throwing things over here, but how kind of explain, so you basically take the property, buy it, and then sell it again? Like, kind of explain what you do and how important a mentor is.
Yeah, so real quick, so that is one of my mentors that I have.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was a guy, he's a super, super analytical guy. So as far as numbers, you know what I'm saying, how to structure a deal, you know what I'm saying, what this definition means, what this means. He's my go-to guy as far as, learning more about real estate. However, I also have a real estate coach. His name's Fred Brown, another tremendous dude who's extremely selfless, and has helped me tremendously over the past year. That's the guy who teaches me more about the transactions and wholesaling. Because my first mentor, Miles, he just buys and he holds the properties.
Okay.
So he doesn't know too much about the transaction process. However, my other real estate coach, he knows about that. So Fred, he's been a tremendous help. And did you want a breakdown of what I do?
Yeah, kind of explain, like, because you're not necessarily doing like buying properties and renting them out, are you? Or are you?
So we can get into that. I'll break it down first. Yeah. So what I do is wholesaling, and pretty much you take a property and it has to be distressed, because if it's distressed, that means you can add value to it later. So I find distressed properties. So say, for example, I have a property that's $60,000. This neighborhood, the property that's fully flipped, it's going for $180,000. Now this property looks like a HGTV home. It has the nice counters, nice flooring, all the exteriors nice, stainless steel appliances, the whole decked out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I take that property. I'm like, okay, this property, we're at 60. Our seller wants it for $60,000. They want $60,000 for it. I'll lock that in contract with them for $60,000, and then I'll go find an investor. Those people who are on HGTV flipping those properties, I'll go find them. Say, hey, we have this property here in this area. Take about $40,000 to $50,000 in repairs. Would you take $80,000 for it? So then they put it in for $80,000. What that does is that pays off that $60,000 to our seller, and then I make the difference. So that between $80,000 and $60,000, I make the difference.
Okay. How regular is it that you have like those type of investors? Is that a pretty common thing around here? I guess I've never really thought about it, because like you said, you see the TV shows and all that kind of stuff. Like, how common is it around here?
I'll say there's a few heavy hitters here in the Newark area, But in Columbus, there's everywhere. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah.
saying? And there's some they're doing it to a high standard. They're doing it all out. I've seen a couple of dudes they've made. I think they own 15 million in real estate,
Yeah.
and within 5 years. And there's other real estate investors who they're in the slow game, like in a super slow game, and they might have a full-time job and they're just buying one property a year or one property every 2 years and just using it for retirement. But as far as here in Newark, I would say it's pretty common. I was actually surprised that it was a homeowner who did you guys' house because it's beautiful.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And usually when you see houses like this, it was an investor who came in and flipped
Mm-hmm.
it. So I'd asked her, yeah, but it depends. There's definitely a couple heavy hitters around here, though.
Yeah. That's what, because I was curious, like, because she lived here for probably 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then I met her, and then, so I've been here pretty much ever since we
Mhm.
met, but, and like, the neighbors across the street, they've lived here for like 40 years. They've been here for forever, and
Yeah.
I remember asking, I was like, yeah, like, what? Did the last owners do it? And they're like, oh yeah, or I think it was the two before they did it. But I think that was kind of their intention. Like they said they didn't live here very long. I think they bought it, flipped it, and then
Another
we're
thing, a lot of
out.
couples will do that as well. You'll see some couples that go in there and they'll take 2 to 3 years to flip their property because after they flip it and get that equity inside the
Mhm.
property, there's a thing called a 2-year tax plan where you won't have to pay taxes on whatever you sell it for. And then if you're married, it doubles. So you get like up to 250,000
Sierra.
that can go straight into another property. And then if you're married or whatnot, it's 500,000 that goes
Okay.
straight into another property. You don't have to pay no taxes on it.
Yeah, our goal with this house now, especially like with the area growing the way it is, we'd love to be able to, and I want your thoughts on like doing it and like how you think the best way to go about this is. We'd love to keep this property and rent it out. So
Okay.
what are your thoughts on that? And like, is it, and how would you go about doing that essentially? I mean, it's
I love
kind
that
of
you
simple,
say
but
this.
kind of not.
I love that you say this because I try to do this for my mom's house. Yeah. So first things first, I know she had spoke a little bit about her numbers, and you guys have it at 2.7. I think that was the interest rate you
think
guys
so,
are locked
yeah.
in at, which is extremely well. So if you guys wanted to go out and rent it out, say your mortgage is 700-800. How many bed is this?
It's technically a 3-bedroom because the dining room is actually a bedroom as well.
Okay. So if you turn that into a room and you moved out of here, 3-bed bathroom.
1 bath, full bath. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about 1,300 to 1,500 a month rent. Say the mortgage is $800 a month. It's a no-brainer. A thing I would do is it's a process called a HELOC, and what that HELOC does is it allows you to pull the equity outside of your property, but you get to keep reusing it.
Okay.
I would use that HELOC to go buy another property, keep flipping over and over and over. That's what are you talking about moving out of here
Yeah.
and getting something else?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you'd be interested in either selling this on a land contract, which means you wouldn't have to go to the bank. You wouldn't have to go, it'd be straight through you. And then those terms can be, hey, you need to put $12,000 down, so that would be you guys out of pocket or whatnot, or they're out of pocket to buy this, and then you guys can set whatever interest rate you wanted on the property, and then you could refinance out depending on how much your mortgage is after you refinance. If you're still cash flowing, I know, like my mentor, he likes to make, I think, $200 to $300 a door. If you guys are making $400 to $500 on, just this property, after you refinance, you guys pull out. And this is probably getting a little too technical. You pull out.
No, I like it. This is the stuff that I wanted to know about.
So
So
let me see. She said she bought for 170.
I believe so. Yeah, 170 something.
70. Say because this was already remodeled when you guys bought it. Say it's at 185 right now. You'll pull out 80% of that, which is well over what she owes on it. You know what I'm saying? So you guys will take that money and then you'll pour it into the next property.
That's our goal is
Let me do the math real quick.
we'd love to keep this and rent it out or whatever, and then just use that money to help pay for our next house, because like we've talked, like the next time we move, we're like, we want it to be where we stay for sure, but like that's one of the things but I've always, like, I've been around some people that have gotten into real estate, maybe not a ton that have like done a whole lot with it, but I know some people that have a few properties and stuff and rent out, but I've also heard the nightmares of renting with bad renters, and that's where I'm kind of hoping that with the area turning a little bit nicer, slowly getting better and better, that it'll help with that. But also, I've also thought about, and I don't mean this to sound in a bad way, but the neighbor across the streets.
Real quick, too short answer. I would keep this a little longer. 2 to 3 years living in it.
That's our goal. That's our plan.
And everything
yeah,
because then you guys can get. I mean, it might be 210,000,
Yeah.
225,000.
Our plan's to keep it for.
Yeah.
We can't really afford to go anywhere right now.
And then hopefully we can talk then as far as what we should do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say land contract or refinance now. Go and get something else.
Okay. But I've also thought about the neighbor across the street is older. The neighbor beside us is older. And I'm like, Sarah, I don't mean this in a bad way, but it'd be really cool to buy up the whole block and just.
Oh, bro, that's the dream.
That would be awesome. But I'm
thinking the right way.
Yeah.
I would. It depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to other real estate investors, I've heard some hostile things. I've asked them, how are you guys, finding sellers? How are you guys, doing this? One dude, he stood up. He said, "Look at the obituaries. Go to the funerals." I'm like,
I've
whoa.
heard a lot of people that actually I've heard that from a lot of real estate.
I'm not an overbearing type of guy, so to do something like that is just, the money comes, but doing stuff like that, this is a little out of character.
It is. I mean, but like when you think about it, it kind of makes sense because not most likely that house is going to go up for sale anyway.
One of the few ways I've thought about connecting to sellers. This is kind of funny talking this on a podcast. I was sitting inside a draft house one time, and I was just seeing the guys and the girls who sit up on the bar, and they look distressed. Just some property can be, they look distressed. So I wanted to put my card right there, just in case they wanted that lump sum of cash and to move out, move to a different state, do this. They could see, okay, I can sell my house right now and do it. And then also, the biggest question is how to get into nursing homes.
Well, I mean,
that was one of the wild thoughts.
I know a lot of people.
That's me being greedy.
My neighbor back home, he is living in his grandpa's house because he moved to a nursing home. But they're gonna probably be putting that house up on the market soon. Right. And he's like, I mean, honestly, like a nursing home, a lot of them still have their properties. If they haven't, they usually keep those properties until they start to run out of money. And then
find too is usually the next of kin doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
They want to be done. I had these memories of, my grandpa or my dad in there, and they don't want nothing to do with it at all. We had one, I bought it, I think I bought it for $15,000 in Pataskala. She wanted nothing to do with it. Her mom didn't, I think her mom passed away, and she owned it for 6 years. She didn't go inside the house, I think, maybe once or twice to clean it out, and that was it. She didn't want nothing else to do with it.
It is tough. I've been, like grandparents and that stuff, and I remember my parents one time being like, "Yeah, you can have the house when we die," and I'm like, "No offense, but I don't want it. Like, I really don't because I couldn't. It'd be hard. Like I've told Sierra about this kind of stuff. Like I feel like it'd be hard for me to go in and change things." Because I'm like, no, this is how it's supposed to be. This is like how it's been my whole life, and those kind of things.
A lot of other people out there like that too.
So I don't know. Not that I don't have any compassion. It'd be a lot easier for me to take somebody else's house and be like, "Yep, that's gone. We're redoing these floors and that kind of stuff." But my own, I'd be like, "Nope, these carpets may be 30 years old, but they're staying."
But I get it.
But the mentors thing that we've talked about it on this podcast so many times with so many guests, and how important it is. Whatever industry you want to get into, it doesn't matter. There's so many mentors out there. I've talked to people on Instagram.
Whether you see them or not.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of podcasters that I've talked to just on Instagram that I've never met them in my life.
For advice,
never had a phone call, even anything. I just messaged them like, "Hey." And I know people too about cameras and stuff that I've been looking at getting for the podcast. Anything you never just shoot your shot because more than likely they're willing to help you out.
Right
now, are they going to give you all the advice? No. They're gonna
figure out. That's how I am right now.
That's what my boss. He's like, I have a lot of people message me about wanting to know how to install pools and this kind of stuff, and it's like, I'll give you some advice, but some things, man, I'm not giving away all my secrets. You got to figure some things out. We figured out a lot of stuff. I've been with him since he installed his first pool. So we figured out a lot of stuff on our own.
You got to be careful too, because some of the people you're telling, they want to be in your spot.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I'm in a high spot or anything like that, but they ask, so they can get to where you are, or they can judge where you're at. And I could do better. I could do this. I could do this. So you gotta be careful, how much information you're giving out as well. Because I was one of those guys, and I still, to an extent, am like this. But I'll give the game to whoever. You know what I'm saying? If you're asking about real estate, it gets me going. You know what I'm saying? I like talking about it. I like just the conversation, about it, because things I'm learning and how I can teach is sweet. But yeah, you definitely have to watch out for things like that.
That's one of the biggest things. Like, my boss is like, I look at where they're at. If they're near us, like, I'm not giving you any advice. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not helping my competition.
Right.
Like, we already have enough competition because there's so many fly-by-nighters, and we get calls every year of people being like, so they started installing this pool, and I just feel like it's not right. My boss goes out and looks at it, and he'll like show us pictures of it, and we're like, what in the world were they doing? Like, it just it's so bad. People think they can do everything, but that's where it's so important to do your research. Like, look into it before you
do yourself.
Yeah, like, my boss looked into pools for over a year before we actually got into it. Like, we used to just put in patios. He did research on it. He even went to Michigan and like worked on a crew of some guys that he knew for free. Like, he just went up and helped them for a few days or like half a week, just so he could try and learn some things.
I started when I was like 16, just going to meetings and whatnot. It took me 2 years to get my first deal. Just learning, sitting there learning, building relationships. Everybody would be like, how's the real estate going? Like, right out of high school. And it was hard telling them that I was doing good because I'm building relationships. I know I'm doing good, but there was never no monetary success at that time.
That's where I think a lot of people get confused with too. Like, it's not the money that shows the success always.
At all.
The relationships are way more valuable, in my opinion, than any money can buy.
Yeah,
like,
so
anything.
My first deal, I sold it to a lady that I had built a relationship with when I first started learning about real estate. It was crazy. It circled. I'm like, oh, that's why you build relationships. 2 years later, I'm selling her a deal.
Yeah.
2 years. Yeah, so it's crazy.
The relationships off this podcast of people I've met and talked to, and it's like,
I mean, as easy as this, man. I see what you guys are doing. I'm like, I'm trying to be a part of it. How can I get a part of it?
It's definitely possible. There's always open. After this, we're not going to completely change everything, I will say, but we have the three of us that are really into on the podcast regularly. We have a meeting on Tuesday, and we're gonna kind of sit down and figure out the direction we're actually going to take this. So like next year, and especially like the past, I've been doing it for 3 years now. So the past like 3 years, I always haven't had like the money or even the knowledge to like really push it to where where it could go.
Right.
Now I have money and I can buy things and do a lot more. I have more time in my hands than I did when I was in college trying to study and play football and do everything. But it's just
you played in college.
Yeah, I played D3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I went to Ohio Wesleyan. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It was a fun time. I don't regret going. Maybe wish I would have went to a cheaper school. That's the only thing that I wish I'd have done different.
I'll tell you, man, those D3 coaches, they used to talk so hostile to me.
Really?
As far as, because I'd tell them, like, I'd be like, I'm going to be honest, it's either real estate or this, and that is my decision. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what I'm going to do yet. And they'd be like, man, well, you're only going to play football 4 years, and, you can do that later. And I'm like, no, because my circumstances are a little different. I got my mom, she's a single mom, you know what I'm saying? And with my other siblings, there's no dad in the house, you know what I'm saying? So they have to look up to some type of male figure.
Yeah.
So the circumstances were just a little different. They made me move a little different as well.
Yeah, I was the youngest of four, and all my siblings are way older than me. The next oldest is 8 years older than me, so everybody was out of the house by the time I graduated high school and everything. Yeah. My parents were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I was thinking either military or... Because, like, I had the mindset of being too cocky of, like, it's either D1 or D2, or I'm going into the military.
That's how I would.
And then it's like, we all have those minds, and I don't think it's a bad thing as long as you don't get cocky about it, which I got a little cocky about it, and I don't know why I got cocky about it. I didn't have any schools coming and looking for me or talking to me, so I don't know why I got cocky. But then my senior year of high school, I actually broke my elbow, the second game of the year, and they were told me like, you're done for the year, and I'm like, oh fuck, that's not happening. I ended up coming back 4 games later and playing the rest of the year, but like. Any chance I thought I had of D2 even was like gone. But then I went and played D3
Mm.
And when I got there, I was like, there ain't no way in hell I could have played D2 or D1. Like, just the talent people that,
You gotta
like,
think it's still the next level.
yeah,
Like, you know what I'm
it's a
saying?
big step up
These
from,
people didn't come, just to kind of, have fun, or no, they came. They're paying for college too.
yeah. I remember going against like Wittenberg, and they had a transfer from Kentucky and a transfer from some of these other SEC schools, and I'm like,
What?
how? They
It's
got in
wild.
some trouble when
I'll
they were
tell
at
you,
their schools.
my senior year when my hamstring had tweaked, man, it, as far as the next level, it really took my confidence down
Mm-hmm.
like tremendously, because I knew I could make moves and whatnot and make the right cuts and do this in high school. But I was like, hey, next level though, like, are you gonna be able to play through this?
Yeah.
And then concussions. You can see my middle finger right here.
Yep.
I mean, not my middle, my ring finger's all tore up. So it's like health wise too. That was another big factor and why I didn't go play at the next level, because I had everybody thinking I was gonna play at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And then just that small stint of COVID right there had a whole mindset shift. I'm talking about, I went to school and like I was like one of my first thoughts was like, no, you have to learn how to learn. And like even when I went back to school, I had like a 3.8. Now my cumulative like a 2.4. I tell people that all the time because they're like, bro, you're so smart. I'm like, no, I'm not. I promise I'm not. Yeah.
That's how I was in college. Like high school, I was pretty good, but when I got to college, like they told me after my first semester, the coaches pulled me in. They're like, next thing we know, you're a good academic student, but if you don't get your grades up, you might not be playing. And I'm like, okay. I failed my first class in college, and I was like, this is weird.
Tough. Super tough.
What's up, everybody? I wanted to interrupt today's guest episode for a quick second and tell you guys about Roughnecks merch. If you head over to roughneckspodcast.com, grab yourself some Roughnecks gear. We have many different types of options. There are t-shirts, long sleeves, sweatshirts, hats, coffee cups, tumblers, and much more. My personal favorite is the Take No Bull shirt or the classic black Roughnecks t-shirt. That was the first merch ever sold, so if you were looking for an original, that is the way to go. Buying merch and wearing it out is one of the best ways to support the podcast, so head over to roughneckspodcast.com and grab yourself some Roughnecks merch. Let's get back to today's guest. But you're the strength and conditioning coach at your old high school. What's that feeling like of going back and kind of giving back to the school where you played and everything?
Yeah. So at this point in time, man, I heard in a meeting, one of the people who were running the meeting, they had asked a whole group of investors who were extremely wealthy. They had said, how are you guys giving back? And a lot of them kept saying, I'm going to wait until I get to $1 million. I'm going to wait until I get to X amount. And man, I'll tell you, it felt great to stand up and say, I can't give back monetarily yet, but through my experiences, I can give back. You know what I'm saying? What I learned, I can give back, and how I move people, I can give back. So I'd say so far it's a great experience. It's definitely a challenge, being 20 years old, going back into there. But I also I like to pride myself off of moving older. You know what I'm saying? Thinking older and thinking ahead. So I know like a lot of concerns was, he's only 20 years old. You're only 20 years old. How are you doing that? But I'll tell you the biggest goal, and it's a selfish goal, but as far as going in there and being a strength and conditioning coach, my goal is to learn leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Because the question I'd ask myself when they gave me the opportunity was, okay, what are you getting out of this? What are you trying to pull out of this? And the biggest question was, Denali, how can you take 30 to 35 individuals and lead them towards the same goal, and also help them accomplish, their own personal goals? And that's something we're definitely hitting on, and something I'm learning to do. Also, public speaking, I think is huge. And then I'm not really like that loud, outgoing. Like, I'm outgoing, but as far as being loud and the center of attention, I try to shy away from that a little bit. So having to, talk about what's going on in my head and translating it out to younger individuals is a task I'm trying to learn as well. So it's great, man. And also, I've always said so far in this journey that, at this part of my journey, I feel like my purpose is to speak life into younger individuals. I've always said that I don't want to be a person who teaches millionaires how to make 10 million. You know what I'm saying? Or someone who makes 100,000 how to make a million. I don't want to do that. I want to go back, to the middle schoolers, to the high schoolers, and speak life into them and help them, accomplish their dreams and help them fulfill what their purpose is and while they're here. So to go back, to the high school and do that right now is crazy. It's crazy, and I can't imagine how it's going to be moving forward.
Leadership as a strength and conditioning coach, and I like that you kind of talked about, like, you want to learn leadership. Like, you're doing it, you're still learning as you're going.
Skill.
Because when you're in the weight room, like, they're looking at you like, right. what are we doing? What are we supposed to be doing? What's next? That kind of stuff. So that's real. And I like that you mentioned too, you want to help them, like, you have your overall goal of the team goal and that kind of stuff, but you want to help them reach their individual goals as well. And that's very important. Like, how is it balancing that of, because you have to coach kind of players. Each player is a little bit different. Like, you have some guys that are very similar in how they act towards things and how you can, you might be able to give these guys the harsh reality, but if I give this guy the harsh reality, he's going to shut down. So I have to kind of sugarcoat it, but still push him to be kind of, how is it balancing that side of things?
Right. So I like to call myself the noticer. And right now I'm extremely, I'm an extreme beginner in it so far. And I'll tell you what I'm doing right now is I'm going to the games. I'm watching their character outside of, volleyball, basketball, whatever it is. Okay, do people gravitate towards them? Do they push people away? Do they get overwhelmed easy? Those little things. So right now I'm in a learning stage of these athletes as far as figuring them out so I can see how I can implement, into each of their lives, if that makes sense. That's where I'm at right now. But as far as balancing, a lot of them have a lot of different physical goals. Some want to shed weight, some want to get stronger. Some are stronger, since they don't really care, so I got to find another way to motivate them. It just depends. Like, and you hit on the nail. Like, some of them I can talk trash to a little bit. Some of them I got, hey, man, that's a great job. You're doing great. Hey, your form is great. Because they're awkward. They kind of feel awkward. So tell them that, that their form is great and they're doing the right things. They're like, okay, that's a relief. Because right now I've been working with a lot of the girl athletes there at Licking Valley. Okay. And,
so are you the strength and conditioning of, like, the whole, like, or overall, or like what exactly is your role?
Yeah. So as far as right now, I got offered the strength and conditioning coach job for the volleyball, and then I've done a little bit of cheerleading, and then we're about to go into basketball as well, girls basketball, and I think they talked about track and whatnot too. So definitely we had to learn more movements and whatnot.
I was gonna say, especially, like, do you have to kind of go through and, like, all right, this is the sport they are. Like, I can't do the same type of lifts that I would do with, like, a football program necessarily. Like, yes, some overlap, but, like, did you kind of have to go through, like, I'm assuming you already had, I know you already had, like, a background in lifting and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But did you have to do a lot more research, especially with women's sports, kind of learning things that you needed to kind of implement for them?
Well, as far as the mental aspect of it, I remember I got to coach my sister's 6th grade team, and just seeing that women are way more emotional. You know what I'm saying? Even the volleyball team, there was one practice I came in there, they're all fired up, all ready to go. Next practice, none of them were feeling it, at all. So, and it comes, emotions just like this. But with the females, you notice it's more of a tendency for them to do that, and it can affect how they play. And they also got, the time of the month and whatnot that plays into a role of that. So you got to take all these things into consideration. But as far as movements and whatnot, I also like to target things that they like. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, we're going to be athletes, but I also know you guys want to work on your core. I know you want to work on your glutes. I know you want to, so I tie all this in, again, for the personal goals also, and then to being athletes. And we go from there. But, like, right now we do circuits, so it's on the go. You know what I'm saying? It's 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 2 sets each station. And we're moving. And challenging them, each circuit that we get through, challenging them to do more weight, after each time. Because I don't think the teams that I've coached so far, I don't think they've really had a designated strength and conditioning coach. So right now it's getting that atmosphere, of, okay, we're lifting so that it can translate to the court or to the field or whatever it is. Developing that right now is what we're working on.
It was always the craziest thing, like, when we'd be doing a lift or something, like, and then, like, I get into the season and you'd be at practice and, like, you do something and you're like, that's like the exact same movement of that lift that I did.
Yeah.
Like where when you
Yeah.
like when it clicks, like where it translates, you're like, that is just
Yeah.
so weird. Like I didn't know it actually worked that way.
Right.
Because like I remember like one of my I had two different strength and conditioning coaches in college, and the one like we would do some of the wackiest looking workouts sometimes, like just crazy things that I've never seen before. But then like I'd get onto the field and I'd like. And like one of the things too is like we do a lot of different like hamstring because we had the season before in camp like everybody's hamstring everybody kept pulling hamstrings and stuff, so we like focused on a bunch of hamstring stuff, and I was like, my hamstrings actually feel amazing right now. They're like, it's just kind of getting that transfer of like this is going to translate onto the court, the field, and all that kind of stuff is
so
a lot.
Perfect example of that is like with volleyball, a lot of those athletes are jumping off of 2 feet, so a lot of things that we do is on 2 feet. Now for basketball, we're doing different movements. I was just talking to a personal trainer over there at Apex Fitness. I know he
Which
also
one?
trains. His name's Nate.
Nate, I don't know. I don't know Nate. I know Trevor. So Trevor.
So I've talked to Nate. I actually talked to Trevor too, and I talked to Chris. Matter of fact, in order to pull more information.
So Trevor actually trained me when I was in high school.
Really?
Yeah, he's been on this podcast 2 or 3 times.
I love him.
Doing the World Long Drive now. That dude, I never would have saw that coming. Freaking, I was like watching some of his
live
stuff.
life, man. He's just getting there, just doing things, living. I love it.
I don't know if you follow him on Instagram or anything, but when he does his like at the range and he smacks it, he's like, "Let's go!"
Yeah.
Sorry. It's like he's just always been intense.
He's extremely passionate. I love that.
Oh yeah, he's always been intense.
But just pulling the questions from them, man. Like, and when I'm training the basketball team, just knowing, okay, they do a lot more single leg jumps and they do it more rapidly, so the speed is different. They're from volleyball, so like their training is gonna look slightly different. Now there are some similarities. You still got to work the lower part of the body more. Still want to take care of those shoulders, especially for volleyball. I harped on shoulders a lot just because, cocking back, swing at that ball and whatnot.
Yeah, I should have focused more on shoulders this year. There in volleyball, my shoulders were like,
volleyball is the only reason I have started focusing on mine. I started playing that sand volleyball and I went to spike and I was like, bro, I feel like a bodybuilder. I don't like this.
We played on Thursdays, which is a competitive league. I was the one that was doing most of the hitting. So like I'd get like set after set after set, and like I remember like at some points I'd be like, Sarah, I need a break. Like you gotta hit somebody else. Like I can't right now.
Yeah, no, man, I love volleyball. And that's another cool thing about working with the volleyball team too. Is I tell people right now, like if I could play another sport in high school, it'd have been volleyball.
Does Valley have men's volleyball or no?
No, they don't. If they did, I would have played. I promise you that.
Yeah, I kind of wish. I don't know. I know like Westerville, I think, has it. I don't know many schools around here that have men's volleyball, but I wish that I don't know what season is it during the. It's not during the fall. I think men's is like
I'd consider trying to work it out with football. Like seeing how I could. It was crazy. Nah, maybe that's stretching. I love football.
I know, like football was my go-to sport. Like growing up, like did you ever have a different sport that you loved, or was it just always football?
It was football and basketball, and then I noticed in basketball, and definitely noticed because my sister plays basketball as well. When I used to play, I was only good at defense and passing. Like every time I went to shoot a shot, I'd shoot one shot
That's me.
and get extremely. If I missed, I'm not shooting no more the rest of the game. Like I was extremely nervous, and it didn't translate. With football, I could be nervous and still make a catch.
Yeah.
Basketball, if I was nervous, I'm feeling the shakes a little bit. Yeah, I'm airballing that. And my sister, I noticed that I was like that with basketball. When I see my sister, that girl can shoot 20, 30 times. And she'll go shoot for the 21st, 31st time and act like nothing happened. I can't do that. So that's when I noticed it. Yeah, for me, it was just football.
That's like football. I could miss 3 tackles in a row, but then like the very next one, I'm not backing away from it.
Right.
Like what am I supposed to do? Basketball, I was very similar. Like I played all up through high school, but like the thing that I was good at defense. They always put me. I'll never forget. They always put me on the freaking tallest kid. I was the only football player on our team too, so I was like the most physical guy.
I wrestled a little bit in middle school too.
Yeah.
I wrestled a little just to understand the basics. I feel like.
But they'd be like, "Cole, you got such and such." I'm like, "Coach, he's 6'9". I'm 6 foot on a good day.
On a good day.
Like,
with the shoes
how
on.
am I supposed to guard him? And they're like, "You're physical." I was such. I was a
See, I was an offensive
dirty,
player, man.
but I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was physical, and a lot of those big, tall basketball guys, that was all they did was basketball. So like when I started
Right.
getting into them, and
Take it.
but I also did little things like we'd be standing there and I'd step on, like put my foot on their
Oh
shoes,
yeah,
and
I
I'd
teach my
grab onto
athletes
the
that now. In
shorts.
football, I teach them that now. I say when you go hit that quarterback, go tap on and let them know you're there.
Hmm.
Let them know you're here every play. Let them know.
Yeah,
And yeah, I love it. I love it. I love that you did that. That's awesome.
yeah. I didn't do anything dirty per se. I just did little like
Get in their head a little
mind
bit.
games.
Yeah, get in
Yeah.
their head a little bit.
I
Ain't
don't
nothing
know.
wrong with it.
We played Dane Goodwin, who ended up going to Notre Dame. He was went to Upper Arlington, and
Mhm.
the first play of the game, he shot a three, and I boxed him out, but I backed him into like the bleachers, and he grabbed me and threw me into the bleachers, and they called a foul on him, and he was like, and I was like, I don't know what
Over
happened.
with.
What happened?
Over with after that. In his head the rest of the game.
We held him to his lowest points that he had all year, which was 23. He was averaging like 30 some points a game, and
23's
we still got beat by 40. And the college coaches they came and watched that game because it was closer to Ohio was then, and they came and watched, and I had like 3 fouls in the first quarter. And they're like, "Well, at least we know you're physical," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yep, I am physical. That is for sure." But kind
That's
of
awesome.
going into some other things too. I've also heard that you do some. You mentioned it, public speaking. Kind of what all public speaking have you done, and what are you planning on getting into?
That's a great question. So as far as public speaking, one, I was terrible at it in school, extremely terrible.
So was I.
I wouldn't prep nothing in high school at all. I'd just go up there and just wing it. So I never thought it'd be something I'd get into. But then, you start working on yourself. You start doing these things. You start realizing people are interested in what you have to say. You know what I'm saying, and what you're doing. And so as far as public speaking, I think the first one I had did it at it's called the Nate meetings here in Newark, and that's that group I was telling you, extremely wealthy people in that room, and I had to describe to them what wholesaling was, and these are guys who've been in real estate 30, 40, 50 years, and I have to sit there and tell you, me being 19 years old at the time, what this is in real estate. So yeah, that week I started realizing I had to prep a lot for that week. I think it was like 8 days in advance. They had told me, and it was just on a whim too. They were like, "Hey, can you speak about wholesaling next week?" And it just flowed out. Yes, you know what I'm saying. It just flowed out of me. Like my mind answered for me because I know it's something I want to do. You know what I'm saying. I could see myself on the stage and whatnot talking, but in the moment, right there when someone asked you, it's like, ugh. So that was my first one, and that one went really well. When I got up there, was extremely transparent. I told him I was a class clown. I told him like, hey, this is my first year in this. This is what I'm doing, and I felt more respect from them doing that than I would trying to, be super termsy. Tell them, oh, wholesaling is the ROI, and this neighborhood market is doing this, and instead of doing that, so I was just extremely transparent. I told him about the car seat, told him about selling the toilets and whatnot. And yeah, there was more respect at that. So being transparent, kind of when I felt that I could be transparent in front of that many people, took off extremely. So I'm like, I kind of like this feeling. The latest one I've done, I went to a Columbus school up there. I think it's one of the lowest performing middle schools in Columbus, and it was a very eye-opening experience. For someone being of color, I felt very privileged going to that school.
Well, the weird thing is like we're not in Columbus, and like we think sometimes we have it bad, but then you go 30 minutes down the road, 40 minutes down the road, and it's like, man, this is completely different than what we experience.
Yeah. So, and before I got on this podcast, I'm always asking myself, like, just let it flow. Or I'm telling myself, just let it flow. And is there anything that needs to be heard? You know what I'm saying? Especially speaking to younger groups, that's one of the first things, like, what do you feel on your mind, you know what I'm saying, or on your heart that you need to tell these kids? And that day when I went up there to Columbus, it was, yes, you're 13. I think it was the group I was talking to, they were between 12 and 14. I told them, you guys, I'm not talking up here for you guys to be entrepreneurs right now, at 12, 13, 14 years old. What I can tell you, though, is these steps, the things you can do right now. So when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you can hit the ground running, so it's not, oh, you need to get in real estate. It's no, what are some skills that I can work on right now? Communication, looking people in the eye, asking questions, you know what I'm saying? Learning how to learn, little things like that you can work on. So then when you're 17, 18, 19 years old, you're hitting the ground running.
Communication is the biggest trait that anybody can have.
So I can do it good in, this is hilarious. I can do it good in business. I have not figured out how to do it with females. Yeah. Yeah, not
that's
to be
just
funny.
a different. That's a whole different communication.
Because I told my mom I was joking around with her. She was like, or no, I think what the one girl, she said, she's like, you never you never tell me, what you're doing or who you with or what you. I'm like, I don't feel the need to, but I've noticed this, with past relationships, it's all came to the same conclusion. So if I hear, a couple different personalities come to the same conclusion, I'm like, okay, Denali, it's you. You know what I'm saying? Something. What are you doing? And I had to go back, even to childhood. And I laughed about this with my mom. I was like, yeah, Mom, you know where I get that from? I was like, I remember when I used to tell you, like, hey, like, I'm about to do this, or I'm about to go to the bathroom, I'm about to do this. You'd be like, why are you narrating your life? Like, why are you telling me what you're going to do? Just do it. So subconsciously,
you just started
do that
doing
now. Yeah. But I would say I'm getting better at it now, as far as being able to communicate with people, what Denali is doing, or no, oh, I can't do this because I'm doing this, you know what I'm saying, or why I can't do something.
Yeah.
It used to just be like, oh, hey, can you come do this? No. And then they'd be like, well, he's a dick. And I'm like, no, what? Because I didn't get to tell him why, I couldn't do it. But yeah, I'm definitely something I'm working on, man. And something that I learned that was one of my flaws as far as relationships. And hopefully the next one, it doesn't go like that.
It's funny because, like, in a world that we live in with texting, Instagram, and all that, like Snapchat, like, you don't actually have to truly communicate with people. Like, public speaking type of communication. And I'm not saying you have to go get up on a stage and talk to 100 different people. Like, just being able to talk to somebody in person. Right. Like, I was a shy kid. My grandpa used to take me to Crackle. I can't even speak. Yeah, that place. He'd take me there because he wanted to go there, but he made me order my own food because I was such a shy kid.
Real.
And that kind of stuff. And like, even throughout college, like any time in high school, I'd have to give up and give a presentation. College, I'd always get nervous. Then towards the end of college, I was just like, why do I get nervous? Like, half the people in class aren't even paying attention anyway, unless they have
all the way down. Yeah.
So like, you kind of start to look at that, and then like, because my buddy, I remember when I started the podcast and stuff, and we were talking about it one night, and they're like, dude, we never thought you'd be the person to start a podcast. I was like, why? They're like, you weren't quiet, but like, you just weren't the person that just went up and openly talked to anybody.
I will tell you, you're great at asking questions. I love it.
Yeah, and that consists of a notepad that's tiny that I used to script everything out, but after like you get so used to it, you just start to come up. Like when I hear things, I just write one word down, and it just makes me remember.
That's one thing that my real estate coach beats into my head is conversation. Conversation matters. You know what I'm saying? Because emotions are playing through it. You're expressing feelings through it. You're learning through conversation. You're learning about someone through conversation. Yeah. Whatever it is, he said conversation was important. So I would say if I was to say something I've gotten better at this past year, it'd definitely be conversation. Yeah. So for you, to open up the podcast and tell me like, hey, people saying you're very outgoing and you're easy to talk to, is extremely appreciated, because I feel like I was always someone you could talk to, but I didn't know how to receive. I didn't know how to give back. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know how to exchange. So to hear that was awesome. Appreciate
I will say Connor had a lot of high words, like good high praise for you.
He's a great guy. Yeah, he's a great guy, man.
Because I texted him, was like, hey, having Denali in the podcast tonight, anything that you can think of that I should talk about, and he like sent me this long paragraph, and I was like, all right, well, I don't even have to do any research apparently.
Wow. Man, he's a great guy. He's been very supportive of me too. We've tried to get into a couple different business ventures and whatnot. They haven't worked out how we wanted to, and it's funny because, and he'll tell you too, there was a time I'd say within the past 2 years we kind of separated a little bit, and just because I'm transparently, like on my end, I'm not really good at making friends. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm so personal, if that makes sense. Like I'm so like. From like another skill I had to work on was small talk. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm always trying to get just right to it. You know what I'm saying? Do you know where that comes from? oh, you act like this when someone says this. Do you know where that comes from? Yeah, think about your childhood. And, but you can't do that with everybody. You got to get to the small talk in order to get to the deep conversations. Yeah. And with Connor, he had got back there recently, and man, we just like you could see the maturity through from the last time we met, because he had asked me, he was like, so what were you thinking? You know what I'm saying, when this was going on? And I was able to express, how I felt about the situation, and he did vice versa, and we ended up hashing it out right there. We've always been cool, you know what I'm saying, but you can always tell there's a little bit of stigma, and we were able to hash that out, man. It was beautiful. Yeah. It was beautiful for sure to know that, we can put those problems on the table, set them aside, and be like, man, none of that matters at all.
And that comes with maturity. That is one of the things that I've experienced myself, and it's something like once you get into your, like in high school and stuff, you have those high school problems, and you're like,
I used to take everything personal.
Oh God,
everything. You tell me how I look, I took it personal.
I was this.
I was one ear out the other.
You looked at me wrong, and I was like, what's your problem with me? Like you hate me now? Like,
right.
I don't know why I was that way, but
I'll tell you a funny story. There was so back in the day, I'm weak in high school. Everybody. If someone called me like a bitch or something, I'd be like, oh, you have to show me I'm a bitch. Like, prove it. Da, 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 da. And excuse me for cussing. I don't mean to cuss too much. But, and I was always ready to flash out on somebody because they called me that. And, man, the growth is crazy, because I just had someone say the same thing, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago in a flag football game that we had. And I told him I love you, and kept it going. Yeah, I was like, man, I love you, man. And just kept it going, because for you to sit there and keep calling me that, and, I know where I'm at right now, I don't mean no harm anymore. You know what I'm saying? So for you to say that, it had to be something really deep going on.
Yeah.
So I just told him I loved him and kept it moving. And it's huge. Huge. I used to be one of those guys who want to die by my respect and want to prove my respect and whatnot. But I had a situation happen where I felt disrespected, and I flashed out in a way I shouldn't have. And long story short, I had another conversation with myself, and I'm sitting there asking, like, what's going on? Why did you feel disrespected? You know what I'm saying? What if it's because you don't respect yourself enough? And that did it for me right there. It's like, okay, you need to respect yourself enough first, because you respect yourself enough, it doesn't matter if everybody else disrespects you. And then I'm thinking, okay, you're in real estate, you're gonna be making millions one day. What happens when someone disrespects you at that level? Then what? You know what I'm saying? That those are big problems.
And that's when you'll have more disrespect from people that honestly
1000%.
Don't matter.
So are you going to handle that in the same manner? No. So it's those conversations, man, that truly.
I mean, look at the people like I'm guilty of it too. Like that give so many like NFL players, NBA players, like say they suck and all this stuff. And it's like, like you hear some of those people talk about it, and they're like, they're not here. Like they can't make it to this level. So their word means nothing. Now, if my coach or one of the other players, now that might be a little bit different. But like when a fan says something, it's just like, cool, dude. Like,
doesn't matter your opinion.
What does it matter? Like, it doesn't matter what you have to say.
And that quote, the guy said, the lions never cares about the opinion of sheep. I was like, whoa, hey.
Yep, it's true.
It's real.
Like if you start letting all the outside factors affect you, it can get real dark and real scary place to be, because I've been there, and it's just not a fun place when you let everything that doesn't matter affect you. It's just like, what are you doing? Right. Because I've had to have this same conversations with myself of like, all right, why does that upset you? And it is. When you don't respect yourself, you kind of lack that confidence.
Respected by everybody else.
Everything. Every little thing.
Yeah, it's real, man. That's awesome. Yeah, we got a lot of similarities. I like it.
How did you kind of go about like in your mind to respect yourself and gain that respect back for yourself? How did you kind of go about it? Did you just kind of start looking at the things that you were doing and really weighing it out, or what did you go through?
So that situation was one of those situations that was a very pivotal moment for me. Because with that situation, I lost a lot of friends. I had a lot of friends stop talking to me because of that situation. They looked at me different because of that situation. And truthfully, the only thing I felt like I had at that time, I have family and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? But when you lay in that bed, at night, the only thing you got is yourself, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes that's a crappy feeling. So to sit there and keep, going with what's going on in your head, sitting there was probably the biggest thing, I would say, sitting there with it.
It's the mirror talks. I don't know if you know who Goggins. Everybody knows who Goggins is.
Yeah, he's crazy.
I read his book and stuff, and he talks about the mirror, like where he'd look himself in the mirror and talk to himself, and like people think it's crazy. I've done it. You don't feel right. Yeah. It feels weird when you first do it, but like there's times where like I'll get out of the shower and I'll just be like staring at myself, and like it's times that I'm maybe not mentally like all there, and it's just like, what are you doing? Like, and then you kind of start talking to yourself, and it's like,
I've had a couple of those.
When you have them, all of a sudden
you're pivotal,
like,
though.
They really are.
They're pivotal though,
and like
sure.
you don't always have to go talk to somebody else. Sometimes you just need to talk to yourself.
Right. And that's real. See, I believe, I'm a strong believer in that all the answers are within. You know what I'm saying? Whether you're pinching your skin, your body's telling you it hurts. So that's physically. The same thing happens mentally.
Yeah.
You know, one of the biggest things for me is I can notice when I need to be by myself more and listen to myself more. Because I'll be around people too much, you know what I'm saying? And I start noticing, okay, these thoughts that are coming in my head aren't my thoughts. So let me get back by myself and see what's going on. Little things like that you start to notice. But I definitely believe all the answers come from within.
I will say the only thing with that is you almost have to watch, because I'm the same way where me and Sierra understands. Like there's times where like I'm like I just need to be like with myself right now, with my own thoughts and that kind of stuff. And she understands and gives me my space. And then there's times she looks at me and she goes, all right, I've gave you your space, but it's been too long. Like, you're going on like 2 weeks of this. Yeah.
Then you just
she's like, she's like, I don't care if you go hang out with your friends or something. Like, you need to like actual in person.
Yeah. So that's when I also go to my mentors or, you know, my mom, whoever's right there in my life. And I ask them questions and whatnot. You know, what were you doing at this age? You know what I'm saying? This is what I'm going on. What do you think? Because they're outsiders and they're not. I like to ask questions from people who are neutral, who don't know Denali, or not that they don't know Denali, but they don't care about, oh, Denali, like, I know you're this, you're that. You know what I'm saying? They give me the real.
Yeah.
That's why I like to ask questions from.
Those are the best type of mentors to have. Like people in your life that give it to you straight.
Yeah,
like I'm not gonna sugarcoat it.
Mine are like that, and I'm very fortunate for it.
You said you one of the questions you asked too is like, where were you at this age? Is that different for them? Like, do you see a difference for what they were at this age, because it's a changing world so much, or is it very similar things that you're trying to strive for?
Or is the 12, 14-year-olds? Or who?
Yeah, so like if you ask your mentors,
Yeah. Oh. Nah, you see that they are at a certain level, and it's cool, you know what I'm saying? But that's like I heard it was like Michael Jordan talking about dunking the ball. You know what I'm saying? I want to know what he was doing before he was dunking the ball. Like, what exercises were you doing? What was this like? What were you doing during this time at 20? I remember I asked one investor that question because I seen he's super successful. I said, okay, that's cool, but you're 35 and I'm 20.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? 19, 20. What were you doing at my age?
Yeah.
And he said he'd never been asked that before. I'm like, there's the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, we keep comparing to where these people are at now. I like where you're at, but I'm more focused on where I'm at as well. So what were you doing at this age? But there's times where they're like, man, you're way far ahead. Like, the questions you're asking yourself and what you're doing is way far ahead. And sometimes they tell me I need to chill out, and I don't like it. I don't like it.
It's hard to chill out, like, but that like you mentioned, kind of talked about it, is like everybody sees the end result and wants to know, like, how'd you get there, or what are you doing? Like, what do I have to do to get there?
I used to be one of those guys. That's what I'm saying. I'll be honest with you. I used to compare to where people are at, 10 years down the line. And I'm like, why am I not doing that now? It's like, it doesn't make sense. They weren't even right here, bro.
Yeah, like I look at other podcasts all the time, and I'm like, all right, this podcast, like, I can't compare myself to Joe Rogan's podcast. Like, that's not something. Now, is that something to strive for? Absolutely. Look at it, study it, learn it.
Right. How's he asking questions?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How's he structuring?
That's where I went away from a script, because I looked at him and I'm like, he has no notes. That man just goes in and just starts talking.
Yeah. And another thing, too, I feel like he's studying a lot as well. Those interesting conversations. It's sweet.
Like, obviously, and it seems like he's met most of the people before, at least once before, and then has them on, but like still being able to get on a podcast and have no notes and talk for freaking 4 hours, and it's like, good Lord, I always used to wonder, like, how does he go for 3 hours? And then I've done a couple 3-hour episodes, and I'm like, oh, now I get it.
Makes sense. Yeah, you just realize this conversation. Every time.
Oh, I lose track of time all the time.
Even before this one, I was like super anxious and nervous and whatnot. I'm like, why are you nervous? You know what I'm saying? It's okay. I
still get nervous before every podcast.
Yeah, it's okay. This is only your second time doing it. You know what I'm saying? Not a lot of people, like, as far as how Denali thinks and whatnot, I don't really let too many people know about that. That's something I'm learning about myself right now. Because I don't let too many people know that. And it was crazy. The book was saying that it can harness you as well. And I was like, okay.
The podcast is mainly like some of the Hold My Beer episodes. Me and Dante, he's been my best friend from high school and stuff. And we'll talk about things on the podcast where sometimes I'm like, man, like me and him, it was funny because the one that's going to come out actually this Friday, it was me, him, and our other good buddy from high school. And me and Dante tried to go in these like deeper talks, and Scott just kind of sat there and was like, he's not one that like has those talks. And me and Dante are like, I'm like, there's times where like me and Dante I made Dante cry, but not like on purpose, but like we were talking about some things, and there was a song that I showed and stuff, and like he was, and it like me and Dante can do that, and it's a good thing. Like the podcast is a big thing that I've actually, it's almost been like a therapy at times for me. Like I get things out, and it's really cool to hear other people's experience. Like I'm not the only one. And that's one of the exactly. That's what I always say, that I've said it so many times on this podcast. A failure, it's not a failure, it's a learning experience. You will learn more from your failures than you ever will your successes.
It's real.
And like
I was listening to a podcast today, and it was for non-entrepreneurs, and it was like how to succeed at failing. And all these psychologists were going on there, and they were like, no, failing is bad. Like, quit thinking it's this. And I was like, whoa, I turned it off. I'm like, yeah, we're not doing that. You know what I'm saying? Because you just build a relationship with it. And what do you want that relationship to look like is the final question, of that. And, that's wild.
That's what, I don't fear failure anymore. Like, I used to. Like, as a kid, like, sports and everything, like, I never wanted to mess up. Like, I'm not saying you should strive to fail, but don't get down on yourself when you do fail.
You know what my mentor told me?
What?
He told me, if you're going to fail fast.
Yep. That was.
He said, fail fast and keep going. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, who tells someone that? Yeah, he said, fail fast.
My defensive coordinator in college, he always told us, if you're going to fuck up full speed. He's like, I don't care. He's like, I will.
I love that translation.
We can fix it. Yeah. We can fix it. If you're going full speed, I'll be happy enough.
Right.
Like we can fix the rest later. But if you go full speed, the good things might happen. He
said, fail fast and keep pivoting. I was like, what? What does that mean?
I had an interception in college where I ran the complete wrong coverage. Everybody else was in man-to-man, and I was playing cover 3.
Oh.
We were in cover 3, we were in cover 1, and then they came out in trips, and we usually check to a different coverage when they come out in trips. But
I feel bad for that safety.
Yeah, I was playing corner too. So I was not a corner. I was a safety, and then that year they moved me to corner, and I was way too slow to be a corner. But we played a lot of zone that year because of me. But I ran the wrong coverage and got the interception. He's like, "See, if you fuck up, you better fuck up full speed. That's what works."
Yeah,
and he's like, "Now remember, when we're in man to man, we stay in man to man." And I was like, "Oh, we were in man to man. I should not have checked out of that. I was the only one who checked out of it."
Yeah, I had it. So I tried to make a e-commerce business. I think I was 18 years old. That was when I tried to do it with Connor.
Okay.
And that was one of those instances I had to fail fast.
Yep.
Because I started doing it. I think it was like 2 months, and I started realizing like, whoa, this is not down the path you said you wanted to go. You know what I'm saying? And not that I was afraid of. I think I could have stuck it out and whatnot. But as far as where I really wanted to be, yeah, I had to fail fast. So everybody was like, oh, like, how'd that go? I was like, I failed it. But they'd see it like, oh, he failed a business. Like, he can't run a business. I'm like, bro.
Most business owners fail
Bro,
multiple times.
Thomas Edison. That dude failed over 1,000 times before he got it right.
And he's still known as one of the greatest inventors ever.
Yeah.
If probably the greatest inventor.
Steve Jobs failed 1,000 times. Elon Musk failed 1,000 times.
And they all started out in these little, like, in garages and all that kind of stuff. Like,
just trying stuff.
That's what I started this in my college dorm room. That's where it started.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And now we have a somewhat of a studio, I guess we'll call it. It's not there yet, but it's getting there. And it's just like, that's the thing is like, I think everybody, like we talked about, everybody looks at that end result. You have, there's a lot of steps to growth before you can get to that end result. Yeah,
I like to back it up. When people say like, oh, how'd that go? And I had to tell them I failed. I'm like, but, I learned how to market. You know, so I learned that this wasn't for me. You know what I'm saying? I learned that e-commerce takes way more than what I thought. You know, little things like that.
Yeah, I don't know how much you've listened to, but I've talked about it a little bit. This is not my first podcast.
Really?
This is my second podcast. I had one that I started in college also with Teddy, and it was about mainly college sports.
Oh, I think I've heard that. Okay. Yeah.
But it was really bad. we got like 13 views. It was the highest episode count, and it was like we ended up because then COVID hit in, and we were like, well, what do we talk about now? Like we're not sports analysts, we don't have anything really to talk about, so we kind of just stopped doing it. And then I came back my senior year of college, and he was graduated, but he was actually a coach, and he was like, you want to start it back up? And I was like, I'll start one, but let's not focus on college football. Let's just make it open.
Grab the bull by the horns is what we're gonna focus on.
That's where the whole Roughnecks things come from, because he's from Texas and he wanted to go be a roughneck out of high school. That's what he wanted. He wanted to go work in the oil fields, and then he was like, "Well, I guess I'll go." Fields. That was what I always asked him. I was like, "If you could go back, like, would you do it?" He's like, "Oh hell yeah!" He's like, "I'd still do it today." And I'm like, "What the hell is wrong with you, Teddy?" God, I love that guy. But I'm going to move in some of these final segments of the podcast, and I do have a question that I'm curious about with you that I ask all of my guests. You may have heard it. I don't know if I asked it on Connor's last episode because of the fact that he's already answered it. But if you could go back in time and tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Give me a second. That's deep. That's super deep. At 16? I think the biggest thing would be don't compare yourself to what others are doing, because at that time, I think that's when TikTok was exploding. And whether it was real estate, whether it was people on TikTok lifting, you know what I'm saying, or whether it was these girls and whatnot on there, that'd be the biggest thing, is don't compare none of that, you know, so compare it to a girl to what I seen on TikTok, or, you know, comparing what my chest looks like to another dude's, you know what I'm saying. I'm like, oh, he doesn't work out as hard as me, though. How does he have a chest like that? Comparison, I think, would be the biggest thing. I could say, like, hey, like, you know, these things are gonna pop up. You know, that's not real. You know what I'm saying? That's the biggest thing, especially on social media. I remember there was one night, man, I almost cried because I looked on social media. I got on there, I was all scrolling. I was like, none of this is real. You know what I'm saying? You see all these captions about life lately and this, and you see a lot of people out there comparing to it. And I know I was one of those guys. So to see it now on the other side, you know, knowing that there's other people. I had my high schooler came up to me. He was like, I want to make money like this dude and this dude and this dude. I'm like, well, if you knew what that dude was doing, you know what I'm saying, you wouldn't say that. I was like, don't follow him, please. Whatever you do, don't follow him. Whatever you do. But I would say less comparing, man. Stop comparing yourself to other people. This is your journey. This is your life. You know, be you.
Yeah, that's what social media is. Just
there's so many pros and cons to it.
There is. If I didn't have the podcast, I probably would get rid of all of my social media.
I have got rid of, like, right now, I'll download mine, and I'll delete it like every 24 hours, or like during the day I'll delete it, and I'll get back on a little bit at night, you know what I'm saying? And it's helped tremendously.
Well, it's just not having the app on your phone to click on it and get caught in that scroll. But like social media, it's just a highlight reel. That's what people don't realize. Like, you're starting to see a little bit more of like people giving some real stuff, but like it is a giant highlight reel. Like I remember, like I was one that compared myself a lot to others, and like I'd look at people that I graduated with or near, and I look at things they'd post, and I'm like, man, I'm not there. Like they got a boat, or they got a side by side.
Like, man, what am I doing wrong? It's like, you're not doing nothing wrong. You're right where you need to be.
But then I start looking, and I'm like, I know they have that truck, they have that side by side, that boat, but I also know they still live with their parents. And like, so you start adding things up, and it's like, they think they have this glory of life.
How they got that money was extremely fraudulent. You know what I'm saying?
You start putting things together, and it's like, all right,
that don't make sense.
I don't feel as bad now.
Hey, the more I understand finances, the more I see stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Oh yeah, you're getting 30 deals a month. That doesn't make sense. How are you doing that? You know, it's funny.
Yeah, and those are the people that you're like, I need to steer clear.
The crazy thing is, and the unfortunate thing too, man, is, like I said, I like speaking to the youth and to younger individuals. So when I'm telling them stuff like this, though, I kind of come off as a hater, you know what I'm saying, or like a Debbie Downer, you know. But I'm like, man, I promise you, it's not real. I promise.
Yeah, it isn't. I mean, it sucks, but and that's the world that we live in, where everybody's on social media. And a lot of people just compare to others off social media.
And then especially like on the female standpoint, I think that ruined a lot of my relationships, truthfully. Yeah. A lot of the relationships I was in, I think even ones I've tried, and Yeah, ruined it. So that the first thing I deleted was TikTok. Yeah, deleted.
Yes.
Even that, and I tell people all the time, especially girls now, because I'm like, man, you go on TikTok and these girls, you got to think they get paid. You know, what I'm saying? 16 hours a day to sit there and record. You know, these little meals, these extravagant meals that they make. You know, they get paid for that stuff. Yeah. That's all they do during the day. You have your 9 to 5. You're still working out. You're still taking with your family doing this. Like, I promise your lifestyle's way better than theirs. Like, a lot of them, they moved way far away. They don't have any family, you know what I'm saying, that they can count on any of that. You got all that.
Yeah, 100%. If I could delete social media, at least personally, and just use, like...
My goal for social media is once I start delegating out tasks, I want to delegate my social media to a social media team. Oh, and I'll make my content, but I'll let them post and whatnot, and let them manage the comments and whatnot. So I don't want to touch it because I still want to reach out. You know what I'm saying? But as far I don't want to get too indulged. Yeah. And then you said with the public speaking too earlier, I imagine myself on big stages and definitely be able to speak to the masses. You know, as far as how to get ahead in life, how to stay with your dream.
Well, and I like that one of the things you talked about back with the public speaking, and it's like I'm not telling you the entrepreneur side of things. I'm telling you what you can be doing now. Like as a 13-year-old, little things you're not going to think matter as much, and it's not like the overall grand scheme of things, but it's the things that are going to help when you do get to 18. You're already a step above everybody else. So that's one of the things I wish I could go back in time when I was younger, and like whether it was like financially saving or just doing like researching this and spending a little more time on that, and just to kind of help put me a step above a lot of other people. Now, it's good to figure out later in life too, because there's never a bad time to start, because there's always still people below you.
Not at all. Yeah, not a bad time to start. Even I see some kids, one of our business developers, he does calls for us. He's 17 years old. Yeah. 17, starting out where I am now. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Like, whoa. And it's awesome. Super awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the company I'm with, I started at the bottom. We talked about this on the other another episode that's going to come out later. It's like starting at the bottom of something and working your way up is so much more rewarding than just getting that goal.
When you didn't kind of duck around, you know what I'm saying? You didn't go around the loops and whatnot. You went straight through it. Yeah, I take everything on this.
It makes you appreciate, like, other people too, and like what they went through and the things that they did. It really does. It's like that's why people love the Michael Jordan story. He got cut from his high school basketball team and still ended up being one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the craziest things is like we look at these players and whatnot, and we forget that they bleed the same. And they put their pants on the same way and whatnot. So like, there's people, you know, who are where we are, and they're like, man, you know, I can't get through this problem, or this life's so tough, or this and that. I'm like, but that person you look up to, I'm like, his life was way, I don't want to say way, I don't want to compare lives, but you know, it was challenging, and he got through it, and you're glorifying him for getting through it, him or her for getting through it. You could do the same thing. I promise. You could do the same thing.
That's what, like, it is very weird with like the celebrity status. Like, I golfed with Kyle McCord this summer, the Ohio State quarterback, and people ask me, like, what's he like? And I'm like, he's just a dude. Right. Like, he's just another dude. Like, he's like you. Like, he's like us. Like,
hey, have you got him on a podcast?
No, I'm working on it. It's a little hard to do in season.
I think I got a guy I could try to get you on with.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm going to try. His name's G. Scott. Awesome guy.
Okay. I mean, I'll definitely take guests. That is one of the things that I've been working on is, like, you get 3 years into it, and it's like, all right, I've leaned on all my friends. I've leaned on all my family. I'm starting to run out of people that I can think of. I come across people like Instagrams. That's another thing. Like, even when I am scrolling in the endless scroll, like, I'll come out and I'm like, and I've seen their videos so many times, and I'll research them a little bit and what they do, and I'm like, I reach out to people all the time, and I'm just like, hey, would you come on a podcast? Yeah. Sometimes they say nothing. Sometimes, most of the time, they don't say anything, but I do get some yeses from here and there, and it's like, all it takes is that one yes.
I like this. I like this a lot. I like the feeling of it. It feels good.
Yeah. But we're going to go into the final segment of the podcast.
Let's do it.
Which is Motivation Monday. Motivation Monday is the point in the episode where I allow guests to give the Roughnecks listeners a little inspirational bump to set the tone for their week on Monday morning as they listen. So what do you got for Motivation Monday?
Here we go, man. I got, and this is something I had thought about before I jumped on the podcast. Is what I was gonna say. So I like this. I had thought, and this is something that's put me, I think, far ahead. Is to chase happiness is an illusion. Like, what do you mean by that? Well, if you go look at what to be happy is, it's an emotion. And if you see what an emotion is, you understand that emotions come and go throughout the day. You know, there's that 20 minutes where you were happy. There's that another 20 minutes you were sad. Then there's that hour where you were angry. We deal with a lot of emotions throughout the day. And so if we deal with a lot of emotions, how often does happy come about? It's not too often because we have other emotions we're dealing with as well. The goal is to chase peace, to build peace within yourself. And how do you do that? Great peace. In order to truly appreciate great peace, you must first go through great pain. You know what I'm saying? What does that pain look like? It's different for everybody. It doesn't mean physical pain, mental pain. It means going through things and being able to get out of them. You know what I'm saying? And appreciating them for what they were. So that's the biggest thing is don't chase happiness. It's an illusion. Chase peace. Peace is here forever.
That's very
Happiness
similar.
is temporary.
Yes, it is. That's what people like you said, like we go through emotions all day. How many times have you been driving in a car and this song makes you feel happy? This song makes you pissed off. Like you get all these different emotions just from music.
So it's like the how you said the what chases the rabbit. I forget what it is, something like that. But the chase like you know what I'm saying, happiness is it's bouncing all over the place. Yeah. So for you to chase it, it's like I'm getting tired of chasing this thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? What if I chase peace? You know what I'm saying? Because you can be at peace when everything around you seems to be on fire. You can be mad and still be at peace, knowing okay, you know this situation is going to lead to this, or no, it's okay because you know I'm at peace. It's extreme.
Yeah, and it's not going to be an easy thing to find. Like, it takes time to find. It takes time,
for sure.
Like, Joey, Josiah Harrell, I don't know if you know who he is. He went to Licking Heights. He's my age. But he is fighting. He fought amateur MMA, and then he actually got the call to go to the UFC and make his debut.
That's awesome.
And went, and then they did all their, like, the testing and everything. Found out he has moya, which is a brain disease where it, like, the right side of his brain, it like shuts down circulation from time, and like sometimes it has 50%, sometimes he has like 10%. He doesn't even knows, but it could kill him, and he had no idea. And this is the dude that I played with him in the Licking County All-Star game. Yeah, was nuts. Like it was, he was hitting his head, and everybody was like, "Do you think it's?" And it's like, "No, I was born this way." And I just had. He's like, "I'm lucky because he's been fighting for 4 or 5 years now." Played football, was a nutcase in football. God love him. It was awesome to be a teammate with. He went to my rival school, so I hated playing against him. But and like he was like, you know, there comes a point when that kind of thing happens. Like he's like, I'm at peace now, like with everything. It's like
right. You understand?
Kind of everything flashed before me. Like it could all be gone,
right?
Like that, and you have no idea.
So you start looking at situations. It's like, why aren't you freaking out about this? And it's like, because I'm okay. You know, so my mental state is okay.
That's I've not great at it, but that was one of the biggest things that I always worked on and have been working on is like not blowing up over every little thing that goes wrong. And it's such an easy thing to do is like you let the little things affect you, or like when something goes wrong at work and it's like I you know, one of the guys I work with, there's all the times where he's like, man, this sucks, or this is gonna suck, and it's just like, yeah, it's gonna suck. Right. I can't change it. I got to do it. So you might as well just get to it.
That goes another thing, man. Suffering is inevitable.
Yeah.
Because there's things that go wrong in our life. It's going to go wrong. So why not figure out how to fix that when it comes upon us? We don't worry about that.
The cliche saying of life is a roller coaster is the truth. You are going to have ups. You're going to have downs. And it's just going to keep going up and down, turning upside down. Like you're going to have all kinds of stuff.
To be at peace, you got to think. So this roller coaster might happen, but your peace, you know what I'm saying, it's kind of going in that straight line. Yeah. Going straight up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
100%.
That's awesome.
But, man, Denali, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Definitely have you back on again in the future.
Let's do it.
Where can people find and follow you on social media if you want them to?
Oh, snap. Yeah, so my Instagram, you can follow me at _Denali Harris. And then on Facebook, it's just Denali Harris. It's not too hard to find.
Okay. I will have the links to that in the episode description. But I don't have any announcements, I don't think. Nothing crazy yet. Not until next week. After next week, we'll have some announcements probably. But until... nope, just kidding. I forgot. We are changing Reno's Rants to Wednesdays for at least a trial run. We're going to try some Wednesdays, see if how they do on Wednesdays. We might move all of our Friday episodes to Wednesdays. So until Wednesday, you guys know the deal. Life is hard and is going to knock you down just like a bull does to a bull rider. Don't let that bull of life walk all over you. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you enjoyed it, one of the easiest ways to support the podcast is to just share the show. Send it to a friend and go to your favorite listening platform and leave a rating and review. It would be much appreciated. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter on roughneckspodcast.com and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Roughnecks